Hey guys, so someone just emailed me a question recently, and I've gotten others like this over the years, and it just wasn't a topic that I think I really wanted to address here, but it is one that I'm sure has crossed everyone's mind to one degree or another. And so I figured I would just try to talk about it. I don't have like a really well thought out response to this, which I'll explain why I don't, honestly. And I'll tell you what others have said, what I've noticed others saying about this also. And that topic is, in relation to manifesting and all the concepts surrounding that, what do you do about the state of the world? And specifically, this person said, does the idea of recession or war, all that stuff, does that bother you? And my honest answer to that is no, it does not. Like, not at all. But not because I'm such a manifesting master, honestly, but it's because recession generally doesn't affect me negatively, and I am in no way that I know of directly impacted by war that's happening in the world, other than, the effects that have reached me in the way that they're reaching everyone in America. I mean, I'm in a very privileged position, so these things don't affect me much. And the business that I'm in, recession it's sort of recession proof. I mean, I have a lot of money invested in the stock market, a lot. Nearly all of my investments are in stocks. And so it's affected by that, but my investments and things like that, I'm prepared for them to fluctuate throughout their lifetime. So that doesn't really bother me. It doesn't bother me to a huge degree. Last year, my business doubled. I talked about that a little bit at the beginning of the year. And so I had a lot of money to invest last year. And every time, it was funny. The stock market was not doing well. Even now, it affected me mentally so little, what I'm about to say, that couldn't even tell you the timing of this. But there were a couple of times last year where I basically put like $50,000 into like the total stock market fund on Vanguard, and it was just gone. It was like, and it's gone. Like, literally, it was gone almost immediately. I put it in and then it dropped almost the total value of what I had just put in. That happened multiple times. But then at the end of the year, and recently, I think it was at the end of last year, there was a huge run up, and it recovered and went way higher. And that's just the nature of investing. You have to sit through recessions and stuff like that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's my perspective. And that's not the perspective of most people, probably. I have noticed, going to the grocery store especially, I have said many times to myself and others, how are people affording to live? Like, the cost of groceries is absolutely insane. I go to the grocery store and walk out with a little bag of stuff and it was $50. I just don't know how people are feeding their kids right now. And so if I had less money, I would certainly be being affected personally by the state of the world. But so, all of that to say, I think I kind of took a certain route to not being affected by these things, if that makes sense. I manifested the money. I manifested each step of growing my financial life to the point it's at, where I would be insulated from a lot of this stuff in terms of real impact to my day-to-day life. So there's that. I could see others being absolutely affected, and, despite your best efforts, finding it really, really difficult not to, have your mental state affected nearly every day by something like a recession or inflation, it being harder to find a job, in sort of general 3D reality. You can always get around that stuff. This is a Neville Goddard example in one of his books, or one of the things he specifically talks about is, it doesn't really matter what the job market looks like. You can manifest your way into the right situation, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I manifested my current, the successful business idea that I had. This all came about during one of the worst financial periods ever, 2010, and my business grew and took off, between 2010 and 2013. And what was kind of lucky about that is that it was something that worked even during a recession, and so that's benefited me to this day, because it's in an industry that isn't really impacted negatively by recession, because my business is something that when there's a recession, you do more of it. So, I lucked into that. And that's the thing, like, everything seems so lucky. Everything looks like luck. But if you watch my channel or my story, it really wasn't luck. It was all a result of a certain mindset that largely was put into more concrete terms for me by Wallace Wattles in the book, The Science of Getting Rich. And to be fair, I've always been kind of naturally tuned this way. So, I was thinking yesterday, people like look at the manifesting stuff or the concepts about manifesting, or, the information or whatever it is you want to call it. Like when you first learn about it and hear people talking about it, it's like people are just, it's as though it's a game of tennis. And people think that because you understand that one person hits a ball over the net to the other and the other person swings a racket and hits it back, that like then you can pick up your tennis racket and be a tennis pro immediately. That's how people act in the kind of cheesy manifestation community, like not the spiritual. I don't know. I'm not really involved in any of this stuff outside of my own personal YouTube channel and my own personal one-way conversations with great authors and stuff via reading their books. I don't really discuss this with too many people, and I don't consume almost any content on YouTube about it other than like Eckhart Tolle and stuff like that sometimes, and Abraham Hicks stuff less so now than I used to, but that's what it seems to be pushed as in this community. Like, oh, you read that you hit a ball over a net to somebody else, they take a racket and hit it back to you. Now go out there, you're a tennis pro. Some people are going to be naturals at tennis. They're going to pick up a racket and be pretty good at it right away, but they're not going to be awesome at it until they practice at it for a long time. The people that are tennis pros that are awesome at it have been, focused on it and working on it hours a day for like ever. Even the naturals have to do that. And most people are going to pick up a racket and they're going to be okay at it. And that's where a lot of people are. Maybe not a perfect analogy, because everybody has the capacity to, this is sort of a human ability that needs to be refined and all of that and nurtured. Maybe not everybody has the ability to be a great tennis player. I think everybody has the ability to be pretty great at learning to use this manifesting ability that you have. But the idea that you just read how it works and then you can immediately do it all is dumb. So, if you're still being affected by things that you sort of intellectually understand that you possess the ability to not be affected by. So like if the 3D is still affecting your ability to maintain a certain inner state, welcome to life. That's what everybody is dealing with. That's you know what I mean? That's one of the challenges. That's kind of what everybody's here to figure out, I think. Everybody is sort of awakening and moving towards, at this point, almost everybody is awakening and moving towards a deeper understanding of what the nature of this reality is. So if you're still being affected by that, that's okay. It's an ongoing process. And if you start to kind of look at it as, I have a great opportunity here to And you should, and this is not like a cop-out. This is what you, in my opinion, this is what this is for. If you have these outer circumstances that are bothering you, it's an opportunity for you to shift in relation to them. And then, to use some Neville Goddard language, the world is your mirror and the world will conform to you. And that's the whole experimentation with this whole area, in my opinion. And, it's really too bad that there is so much bullshit being discussed out there that's easily accessible by people that don't really have a good, firm, foundational, experiential understanding of some of this stuff, because it can be very easy to read what somebody else says about something and assume they know what they're talking about, especially online, because you can't see the person. You can't see that they're 12 or that they're living in their parents' basement with samurai swords on the wall and stuff. You can't see who you're talking to, and so you might just think, well, that person said that and that sounded pretty authoritative, and it those words were spelled right and that was the right grammar, so that person must know what they're talking about. No. If you read Neville Goddard, and that's where most people claim that they're coming from when they start talking about stuff. If you read Neville Goddard, and you read all of his stuff, not just a chapter from one of his books, if you read his entire body of books and lectures and everything, you'll see that guy says that, this is the nature of humans, is to be warlike and to have all these negative qualities that are expressing themselves. And until that's been worked out in humanity, it doesn't really matter what you want. Humanity will continue to have wars. Neville Goddard flat out says this, but you'll find a lot of people, in Neville Goddard's name, saying that that's happening because it's in your mind. It's you directly creating that. It's humanity creating that. Neville Goddard says that. So keep that in mind anytime you hear people, using Neville Goddard as the foundation for some wild thing that they're saying that makes no fucking sense, that you can logically disprove in 30 seconds by thinking about, did you think there was going to be a war in Ukraine? I certainly didn't. I wasn't sitting around thinking, gosh, there's always going to be a war. I wonder when the next one's going to happen. Bet it's going to be, there. Obviously, you and I did not create that. Humanity as a whole, which you and I are connected to, is responsible for that. And you and I do have those qualities that create things like wars. Fear, greed, hatred, judgment, all of that stuff. We all have those qualities. And those qualities, when they come together or or when too much power is given to a person who displays too much of that stuff, that leads to things like a war. So here we are. And my response to this, and again, this, this is just my opinion. It's my way. I'm certainly not perfect by any stretch. And you should always think about everything for yourself and never just do what somebody else says they did or whatever. I take the approach of what's happening in my immediate surroundings. What do I have the most direct impact on right now? And what can I do right now to, start to eliminate the things that are negatively manifesting in my personal immediate surroundings? And I will tell you right now, in 2016 or 2017, I don't know, about 6 months after Donald Trump got elected, I shut off everything having to do with politics and stopped listening to it almost permanently. And then I started listening to Scott Adams a lot, who everyone hates now, just proving all the points that he's tried to make over the years. I started listening to Scott Adams, and I've stopped listening to him too, because that's just I don't know. You have to be very careful about what you expose yourself to. If you are in sort of a state of anxiety all the time, or you're worried and it's about things out there, are you consuming content that fans the flames of of those feelings, stop it. What are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about a war that's happening? You personally. Your power probably extends to your direct outer power probably extends to going to a voting booth, and that's it. And even then, that might have zero impact. So you have to really think about yourself and not worry about that too much. And here's the big one. Have the faith so that you don't feel like a total piece of shit, like I should be doing something. Have the faith that if you're supposed to do something directly to help some sort of cause like a war, that it will be presented to you in a way that you can perceive and act on, and trust your ability to act on that, cross that bridge when you come to it. This isn't something that needs to be thought about by you every day. So, in terms of, your personal, the impact to you personally of financial, outer, world financial situations, I would focus on what you are able to do, which is generate money in your own life. Just don't worry about any of that. I have to be honest with you. I just didn't pay any attention to. I remember when the 2008 housing crisis, all that stuff happened, and I was just so uninterested in stuff like that it never even occurred to me. I was like working on the very nascent. I had a business reselling books at the time. I wasn't like, actually probably what happened then was people started getting rid of their books more, and I was able to find more used books to flip on Amazon. I just didn't even think about it. It didn't connect for me. Oh, this is going to impact my ability to make money. Maybe just because I was too young and naive. I was 28, 29 at the time. Maybe I was just too ignorant to understand what could potentially impact me, and thank God for that, because I didn't even think about it, didn't even entertain it, and it never seemed to affect me. I never perceived being affected by it at all. I just kept growing what I was doing, and business-wise, and it eventually led me to this point that I'm at now, where I'm not really impacted at all. My stock portfolio might look like shit for a couple of years, but and even that I wouldn't notice if my ex wasn't so into investing, and he's like, for the whole time, for 20 years, I mean, he's like, I want to run a hedge fund. He's really into all that stuff, and if he wasn't alerting me to the state of things, I wouldn't even notice. I wouldn't even notice it. I wouldn't have even probably noticed that, what happened last year happened, where I put money in and then it was just gone. It was crazy. That was crazy. And it's gone. So that's my thought on all of that. And it's not to say it should be yours or anything like that, but I don't know that I've ever talked about this here. And I've definitely gotten asked a few times, and my response in my mind was, I don't even think about that, so I don't want to talk about it. But I figured, hey, this belongs here. And maybe there's something in there, that doesn't even have anything to do with this topic that will reach somebody in a way that they can act on. But all of that being said also, and maybe this was clear from something that I said in here, I think that especially now, there seems to be a grand awakening beginning to happen. And that, thinking about that, and I just hearing here and there, hearing some people talking about it, I'm starting to see more what the purpose of my channel here is, or was, or will be, or whatever, which is, I'm just, it's like I'm a lower level, very low, in my opinion, very low level, sort of catalyst, or I'm a cog in the wheel of helping to wake people up that are sort of where I am, or close to where I am. There's just this, I think there's this big worldwide awakening happening. And I do think that a lot of people intending for the same thing at the same time obviously brings that thing about. So you can also just, anytime you hear about war or recession or any suffering of any kind, whatever, you can have an intention for that to not be a thing anymore. And you can have an intention for anything about yourself that contributes to that to be changed. So really really, this is all about intention. Intending and getting yourself out of the way as much as possible, which I'm still figuring that out personally. I'm still trying to figure out, how do I stop myself from interfering with the intentions that I have, either by thinking that I need to go figure it out and do something, to prod it along. Often you do have to do a lot of things to get the things you want, regardless of what people say. Often you are, the vehicle that makes things come to help, helps things along, takes actions. But how do I not interfere? This is a very subtle thing, and it's the tricky part for me personally, is knowing when I'm doing too much, when I'm unnecessarily inserting myself into the process. And the other thing I wanted to say about this, before I end this, is Abraham Hicks said something. Esther Hicks, Abraham through Esther, said that, no matter what you're talking about, no matter what issue it is, no matter what the atrocity is, that nothing happens, nothing is brought into existence that is not a vibrational match to the people that are experiencing it, which is a really hard thing to be okay with hearing. Because if it's not happening to you, at least for me, if it's not happening to me, if something bad is happening to somebody else, the last thing I want to say or even really think is, oh, well, they're just a vibrational match for that. But if you believe that that is the way that the world works, which I do, I think it is, I think it will be factual at some point. Just because we don't understand it or know it yet doesn't mean that we won't. There's a lot of things we didn't know 100 years ago. That does make sense to me, that, a group of people, a culture, can have beliefs and attitudes that are a match to certain things coming about. And I don't know. It's easy for me to say. That's why it's easy for me to say this stuff from the position I'm in. So I don't like to talk about it, because who could be in, I'm in almost probably the most privileged position in the world. So it's hard for me to talk about stuff like that. But I do think about things like, there's a war in Ukraine right now. And it just so happens that one of the closest people to me in my life is a Ukrainian refugee. My ex that I built my business with, is a Ukrainian refugee. His family came here in the early 80s. Why are they, why them? How did they manage that? I don't know. I can't explain it. I can't imagine him living there now. I can't imagine him being a part of all that. And I know everybody there, or a lot of people there, probably would love to have moved to the United States in the 80s and, been being prosperous ever since, which is basically what his parents' story is. They came here with nothing, and his dad delivered pizzas, and, his mom became an accountant, and they worked really hard, saved all their money, bought property as soon as they could, and they were just hard workers their whole lives here. And I'm sure everybody would love to have that opportunity. Why them? I don't know. It's difficult, but people do get out of that environment. People do avoid being a part of the bad things that happen. I don't know. The only thing that I can attribute it to, the only explanation that fits in with everything else, is that they mentally moved themselves out of there, and they didn't match with that situation anymore. And it's so hard to say that anybody could match with war. That they could be sort of collectively responsible for it happening. But I don't know what the other explanation is. The only other way to explain it is to say that none of this that we're talking about here is real. And I'm beyond the point where I can say that. So I have to come up with an explanation that works with this stuff being true as a checkbox. How else do you explain it? That's my response to that. So anyway, I'm sure that was very helpful. That's my response to that question. And maybe I will send this to Tim and Cecilia, my friends that have YouTube channels, and see if they want to answer it also. There were a couple other questions that have come that we were going to sort of jointly all answer separately without having talked about it, and just so that people could get a few different perspectives on it. So that's my answer. It's honest, and it might be wrong. It might be full of shit. I don't know, but that's my answer. And have a great day.